312 BCE, they begin construction on a remarkable feat of engineering, the first of a series of aqueducts. These grand structures shift thousands of liters of water over huge distances. Their water channels are designed with a steady and carefully calculated gradient to keep the water flowing.
It's millimetrically precise. A grade more than 1 in 4,800 was going to cause significant erosion and therefore significant manpower to repair.
Over the next 5 centuries, the Romans build 11 aqueducts. They stretch almost 500 kilometers and provide Rome with millions of liters of water every day, a lifeline for this expanding empire.
The ability to supply water to the capital city of Rome and to all of the important cities around the empire was absolutely fundamental to the population growth and to the success of the Roman civilization. Without that, they would certainly have shriveled and died, or simply not grown.
Rome's aqueducts are a wonder of the ancient world, proof of Rome's mastery over nature. But this is just the beginning. These luxurious baths are a spectacular temple to the Roman love of water.
The emperor put on this enormous expense and this enormous display in order to give his citizens a place to be Romans in the fullest sense of the term. Huge forests of columns of all different kinds of granite, all different kinds of marble, a pantheon of gods and heroes in the niches.
This vast site is equipped with a huge spa complex, 2 gymnasiums, a swimming pool, and rooms ranging from cold to hot.
A couple thousand years ago, we would have been surrounded by naked Romans. The splashing of water, the voices echoing off the arches, the smells, the perfumes. This is a place where you could come and simply get away from the world.
These palaces of water are the hub of Rome's cultural life.
This place was not merely a place to get clean, but a place to do business deals, a place to have banquets and sing merry songs with your friends, a place to work out. It was the society of Rome, all collected in one room.
Here, senators and paupers, men and women, all bathe equally. Over 2,000 years ago, China is ruled by the Han Dynasty. Their northern borders are under attack by the Xiongnu, nomadic horsemen who roam the desert plains. They possess few resources of their own, but are fast-moving and aggressive, and repeatedly loot the Han's riches. This ancient power needs to defend itself against these violent, opportunistic raiders. But how can they protect their long, exposed desert border? The Han come up with a remarkable solution. In 121 BCE, they begin building a huge wall nearly 3 meters high, made of pounded earth and strengthened with layers of gravel and reeds. This wall will end up an amazing 3,500 kilometers long. But will it be enough to stop the rampaging Xiongnu? The answer is recorded on delicate wooden strips, the note paper of ancient China.
边塞这个防御系统啊，当然长城是最主要的。除了长城之外，我们还有一些烽燧。
A staggering 2,500 towers and forts punctuate the length of the wall. One every 5 kilometers, allowing the Han soldiers to keep an eye on their arch enemy.
那么一般来讲的话，这个烽燧上啊，它大概有1个燧长，包括还有几个士兵。一般来讲就是2到5名的这样一个士兵去驻守。
These towers aren't simply for observation, but something far more strategic.
一旦发现有这个匈奴人来袭的话，他们就会把这个信息传递出去。
The Han soldiers are able to warn other forts of incoming attacks. Using carefully choreographed signals, they can say when and where the Xiongnu are attacking, and how many of them there are.
这支简呢是塞上烽火品乐中的第14支简啊，它的内容主要是这个：匈奴人如果有1000个人以上入塞的话，那么就要举烽，同时呢要燃烧2个鸡心。但是这个烽呢，它是旗帜，那这个是只能用到白天的。鸡心呢，它是等于是草垛，鸡心是白天和晚上都可以用的。白天点燃看的是烟，晚上点燃看的是火。
The wall is more than a physical barrier. It's a communication system. Signals travel at over 30 kilometers an hour, more than 600 kilometers in a day. This allows Han troops to rapidly organize counterattacks and stop the Xiongnu invaders in their tracks. The Han can now defend their territory and even expand it. At their peak, around 10 BCE, their lands stretch a remarkable 6 million square kilometers and are home to 60 million people. After years of fighting, almost the entire subcontinent is unified. A vast kingdom of 20 million people, all ruled by Ashoka the Great, a ferocious warrior who keeps control with violence, cruelty, and mass executions. But after his brutal wars and savage behavior, this king is stricken with guilt.
Ashoka writes about the pain he felt. Thousands of people were killed and displaced or imprisoned, and that made him feel intense remorse. After that, it is said that he wanted to change his ways.
In the brutal ancient world, where violence equals power. For Ashoka, this is a risk. But he is determined to change, and for answers turns to a new philosophy.
Buddha says that each of us, we are travelers on this path, every living being. He says that if you want a prosperous and peaceful kingdom, you have to be generous. You have to invest back in your society and cultivate qualities of loving kindness and compassion.
Buddha's message entrances the repentant king. So he adopts it, and in an unusual move, asks his people to do the same.
It's surprising because not only is it a complete change of heart from a warrior to someone who wants to practice non-violence, but also to ask all of his people not to convert, but to follow the new rules of Buddhism. And that, I think, is the biggest shock, is asking people to change and adopt more non-violent means of living.
If Ashoka is to keep his throne by peaceful means, he needs to spread this new idea across his enormous realm.
In the beginning, he sent his ministers to spread his message. But then, of course, he also wanted to make sure that those messages are heard, are seen, are followed. So he also chose to write them down, not on paper, but on stone.
To ensure his message is getting through, Ashoka embarks on a grand tour of his kingdom, erecting stone pillars everywhere he goes, including one in modern-day Nepal at the most sacred Buddhist site.
What we have here is the Lumbini pillar. It is here to indicate that it is the birthplace of Gautama Buddha. So, of course, it's a very important site in Buddhism, and that is one of the reasons why we find this pillar here.
But these pillars aren't just built at religious locations.
Ashoka built them on key spots throughout the Indian subcontinent. Some of them were on important trade routes. And because it was a new phenomena, it must have attracted a lot of people to them to see what it is.
These intriguing structures announce Ashoka's ownership of the land. But it is the writing on them that carries his vision of peace, words that are read out to his subjects.
The pillar we have here and similar pillars that are found all over the Indian subcontinent are engraved with inscriptions left behind by King Ashoka. He mentions the code of conduct he would like his people to follow. The messages were mainly to do with being kind to one another. He goes on to say how you should always treat your subordinates, your co-workers, everyone with equality. And of course, the most important message is to practice non-violence.
The pillars broadcast Ashoka's Buddhist ideals, and they are effective.
It is fair to say that the message that he was trying to get across to people actually made an impact, because we see a relatively peaceful rule for Ashoka until the day he dies.
These stone pillars are built to last, and many are still standing. A visible legacy of Ashoka's successful and peaceful empire. His million-plus inhabitants are super consumers. Alongside the Spanish olive oil, they're eating grain from Egypt, drinking wine from Gaul and Greece. They're using timber, marble, tin, glass, leather, and much more besides. Rome is a monster devouring everything it can get its teeth into. But this greed is a problem. How can the Romans transport all these goods into their growing city? Without a solution, they will go hungry. In 42 CE, this city puts its faith in an ambitious plan. A building project like no other. "25 kilometers away on the coast, they begin construction on a gateway to their vast empire that grows and expands over 60 years. This is Portus, a mega harbor. And at its heart, a massive hexagonal dock.
Today, it looks like the nature preserve here. 2,000 years ago, it would have been incredibly different. The level of engineering here can barely be appreciated.
Built of waterproof concrete, a Roman innovation. This vast port holds 350 ships, all at once.
Enormous buildings. The warehouses that lined the 6 sides. This was a massive, massive endeavor.
Every day, ships from all over the empire offload goods onto its dockside. But this harbor only solves part of Rome's import problem, because shifting this vast quantity of goods demands a distribution network on the same enormous scale. So the Romans keep on building. At 150 hectares, Ostia is the largest remaining Roman site anywhere in the world.
This entire city was built for one purpose, and that was to serve the port. This is a monument to the Roman economy.
Ship owners, traders, tax inspectors, warehouse and dock workers make this bustling city their home. 30,000 people who all play their part in making Rome rich.
We have a large plaza around us. On 3 sides, 61 rooms frame it. And we would have no idea about the function of these rooms if not for these mosaics.
These mosaics act as hoardings for the huge variety of goods traded here. Ears of wheat indicate imported grain. An elephant, ivory, or exotic animals. And ships in the lighthouse, timber for boats.
At the height of Ostia, this would have been similar to a Wall Street. All these deals being made, yelling, money exchanging hands, goods exchanging hands, all sorts of things to continue this ongoing trade. It's so necessary to supply Rome, to feed Rome, and this is really the business end. This is where it happened. If we could have seen the city in its heyday, I think we would have been stunned at the grandiosity of it.
丝绸发展到西汉的时候，基本上真的是生产规模已经很大了，制造的人也很多。除了官府，还有一些民间的。那么民间呢，它还有一些专门的一些作坊，会制造一些比较高等一些。
Organic and delicate, very little ancient silk survives. But one remarkable treasure trove still exists, thanks to a unique burial. In 168 BCE, Xin Wei, a Chinese noblewoman, dies. She is buried within 4 nested coffins. These are covered with 5 tons of charcoal and sealed with clay. This airtight tomb miraculously preserves a stunning collection. Some of the most intricate silk ever created.
马王堆汉墓出土了很多的纺织品文物，它包括有夹袍、单裙、单衣、丝履，还有一些枕头啊、枕巾啊。它不但种类很齐全，那么它的工艺是很高超的。那么绣呢，马王堆它的这个绣也是很齐全的，颜色各种各样的绣。我们对它进行分析，大概有20多种颜色。 所以说，当时这个手艺还是精细到很高程度的。
In the ancient world, Xin Wei's silk dresses are unparalleled in workmanship. And even today, are almost impossible to recreate.
我呢，从事丝绸行业这一行呢是41年。 看到马王堆的丝织品以后呢，我作为从事丝绸行业这一块的人，感觉到真的有一点羞愧了。我们现在的好多条件、工具也好，肯定比他好啊，但是我们做不到这一步。古人为什么能做出这么精美的东西来？
The masterful hand silk makers weave an amazing 120 threads per centimeter. In a technique called Suqing Chao Lua.
不是说没有刺点，做出来呢肯定是有刺点的，所以我们当时是做了10米。这个10米布呢，我们是做了一个工人做了1年。 我看了马王堆，真的非常感动啊！古人真的厉害。
Hand silk is beautiful and practical. It's also wildly expensive. Over 3,000 cocoons are needed to produce 1 kilo of fiber, and hours of painstaking labor to transform that fiber into fabric, making it the ultimate luxury item of the ancient world. And because it weighs just a few grams per square meter, it's also perfectly suited to long-distance trade. India is under threat. The most aggressive fighters on Earth are gathering on its northern borders. The Macedonians. They want India for their growing empire. Few have withstood their attacks, but one Indian kingdom has a secret weapon.
You cannot understand the history of the Indian subcontinent unless you understand the history of the elephant. Indian societies, cultures, states, civilization would not exist if not for the elephant.
Sacred and revered, elephants are worshipped as gods. But can the Indians unleash this animal's dark side to protect their land?
These enormous creatures are capable of such gentleness. But they're also, when provoked, capable of absolutely terrifying acts of destruction.
Elephants seem perfectly designed for war, capable of charging the enemy, breaking their ranks, and instilling terror. They are put to the test in a battle on the banks of the Hatshepsut River in modern-day Punjab. 200 elephants lead the charge, petrifying the battle-hardened Macedonians. But the advantage doesn't last long. Poor training and inadequate armor mean many of the elephants suffer crippling injuries. Frightened and in pain, they go berserk, trampling their own soldiers. Defeat swiftly follows. This leaves the Indians with a challenge. They need a new way to unlock the elephant's destructive potential.
These are highly intelligent, highly sensitive, very social animals. You can't treat them like a chariot. You need to treat them like elite warriors, like nobles, like kings even. All of them needs to be trained in unique ways. All of them have different preferences in terms of the kind of food that they might want to eat. And these animals consume hundreds of kilograms of food a day.
The key is training. Both elephants and riders must learn the art of war.
They were taught how to attack dummies. They were taught to charge on command, move on the battlefield, attack in particular ways. And they invested in this in an absolutely massive way. The elephants were possibly the single biggest item of expenditure for the army. But there was a clear sense that even though an elephant takes a lot of money to upkeep, they more than make up for it with their enormous capabilities on the battlefield.
But training alone isn't enough. To become effective weapons, the elephants also need protection.
As time goes on, we begin to see depictions of elephants wearing armor of overlapping plates. That would have allowed them a great deal of flexibility and maneuverability in combat, as well as providing protection from projectiles, from slashing weapons, as well as piercing weapons like spears. We also begin to see that they're provided with infantry escorts and cavalry guards to ensure that their advance to and retreat from the battlefield is better covered.
The last piece in the jigsaw is a turret on the elephant's back. From these, archers can safely rain down arrows on the enemy. India's superweapon is complete and about to prove its worth. In 322 BCE, a new Indian power, the Mauryan Empire, is on the rise.
The Mauryas assembled a force of elephants that numbered at least 1,000, if not more, perhaps the single largest elephant army the world had ever seen. And it becomes fundamental to their success as an ancient power.
The vast Mauryan elephant army makes them almost invincible. Over the next 90 years, they conquer an empire which stretches from modern-day Bangladesh in the east to Pakistan in the west.
At that time, they had a militia army. There was a requirement, you had to be a landowner, you had to provide your own equipment. So to be in the army really was a wealthy man's game.
What Rome needs is a larger, stronger, and more permanent military force. So it begins to recruit from the poorest in Roman society.
People who had absolutely nothing suddenly have an opportunity at a profession, which means regular pay, regular meals, sheltered. From an army that once disbanded at the end of the campaign and lost all the experience, now you have guys who are signed up for 16 years of service. And that is really one of the key things that makes Rome the military powerhouse of antiquity.
Equipment is changing too. In the past, soldiers had bought their own armor and weapons. Now, it's state-funded. Helmets, chainmail, swords, and spears are all standard issue. They also make game-changing improvements to the iron-plated armor.
Gives you a fantastic amount of flexibility, covers the shoulders, covers the heart, covers all the organs.
But the most significant change is to the shields. Out goes the old round design, which offered little protection, and in comes a long rectangular shield called a scutum. It's a revolutionary piece of kit.
It's a fantastic piece of defense. It's covering the entire body. You can hide behind it. Gives you a little bit of visibility over the edge.
And when used with the might of the sword, it's a deadly combination.
People forget that this is in itself a weapon. If I'm facing my enemy, such as this, I can shoulder barge into one, strike the other.
Fully equipped and full-time, Rome's first professional standing army is born. But its real strength comes from improved battlefield organization. Troops are divided into identical fighting units of 80 men, called centuries. 6 of these make up a cohort, and multiple cohorts combine to create the mighty legion. Working together, it's an almost unbeatable force.
What they created was this impenetrable wall of tanks, essentially. And because they're all dressed in the uniform, this itself, the image of the Roman soldier, of the legionary, struck fear into anybody who crossed them. Mutatio. Ok, davanti, chiudete. Ragazzi, dietro. 1, 2.
Locking shields, the centurions create a unique defense known as the testudo, or tortoise.
What you see here is like building a fortress. They've got great vision, but any arrows that are raining down, slingshots, they're well protected.
While the testudo is perfect for defense, for attack, something else is needed.
This technique is where the Romans really show how their discipline, their mentality, their approach to being a soldier and to war comes into perfect use. This is the mutatio. So what you have is, remember, you've got your line of soldiers right behind you. He's holding my sword belt, which means that if I go too far forward, he brings me back. At a certain point, the whistle is blown, I'm thrown to the side, he comes forward and protects me. I go to the back of the line. If I have any injuries, if I'm able to fight, I get a little bit of food, a little bit of water, I start back at the end of the line.
Rome's new professional army makes it almost invincible. It secures and expands its territory. By 107 CE, it's no longer a republic, but an empire. Egypt is peaceful, prosperous, and powerful. Its 3 million people are happy and well-fed. But the sudden death of its pharaoh, Thutmose II, plunges this ancient power into crisis. Because the heir to the throne is only a child.
Tutmosis II's son, he was about 2 or 3 years of age, and so although he was crowned king, he needed a regent.
Without a strong guiding hand, the boy king's rule is in danger. Who can step in and take charge? The only choice is Tutmosis' wife and queen.
Hatshepsut was a woman of royal blood. But in terms of kingship, a king was male. So Hatshepsut being female was a little bit confusing.
She needs a way to secure her reign. So Hatshepsut embarks on a radical transformation.
She showed herself as a man, dressed in Pharaoh's paraphernalia. There's nothing female about her. So for all the Egyptians, the Pharaoh is as he should be. Just happens to be she.
While these visual tricks work for some, others see her rule as dangerous and unacceptable. But Hatshepsut understands her people and knows that to succeed, she needs to make a permanent mark. And she has a plan.
The ancient Egyptians were big on propaganda and imagery, and that's how they communicated what was going on. So Hatshepsut built throughout Egypt saying, "I am king."
But building alone isn't the answer. She also needs to have the gods on her side. At Karnak Temple in Thebes, Hatshepsut erects a huge obelisk. Carved from a single 30-meter high block of granite, it is dedicated to the god Amun-Ra.
An obelisk is a symbol of the sun god. It's like a sunbeam. And that's why the top, which is also a little pyramid, would have been covered by electrum. And when the sun hit it at certain times of day, the whole area would just explode with light. For the common Egyptians, it would look as if the gods were really present and radiating their light out. And by putting her obelisks here, it's establishing a close rapport and relationship between Hatshepsut and the god Amun, which also is a way of giving her more legitimacy.
In Greece, traditionally, power has rested with whoever seizes control. But now, change is in the air. Greece is a loose collection of individual city-states. Athens is one of the most powerful. It is populated by slaves, ordinary men and women, and wealthy hereditary nobles. And whichever noble manages to grab power rules the city. They are known as tyrants, and the role is now shared by brothers Hipparchus and Hippias.
Our historical sources make it very clear that Hippias is the one actually ruling, whereas Hipparchus, the brother, is concerned primarily with enjoying a good life. Hippias seems to have ruled without many problems for a number of years.
But in 514 BCE, everything changes when a love rival murders Hipparchus.
The assassination occurred at a famous Athenian shrine called the Laokoreion, which was a shrine to the daughters of the hero Laos. And we think that we've discovered that shrine because we've discovered a number of inscriptions that mention the hero Laos.
The impact of his brother's murder is devastating for both Hippias and the Athenians.
After the assassination, his rule becomes more cruel. He's paranoid. He kills people in the city that he thinks were co-conspirators and exiles others.
Hippias's brutal rule, harsh taxes, exiles, and executions soon lead to civil strife. And eventually, he is deposed. But the Athenians are reluctant to live under another brutal tyrant and begin to ask, could there be another way? The man with a plan is Cleisthenes. He's a wealthy noble, but wants to overturn the idea of hereditary privilege and hand power to the people. He proposes any Athenian can attend its governing body, the assembly.
We're at the Pnyx. We're above the Athenian Agora, and we're also in front of the Acropolis Hill. This is the place where the citizen assembly, the ecclesia, would have met. There is a stand where the speaker could have addressed the crowd. That's called the bema. And then there's a large open space where the crowd can sit or stand. And we think that there was probably space here for about 6,000 people, maybe upwards of 10,000. This is the center of political life.
But this early form of democracy has its quirks. Members are not elected, but randomly selected.
It means that you can't become a career politician. You can't try and corrupt people towards making certain decisions. It means that the whole citizen body is represented as fairly as possible.
But not everyone is eligible to take part in making decisions.
It's just the adult males who are over 18 and are Athenians. That means no women, no children, no slaves, and also no resident foreigners.
Despite only representing 10% of the city's population, this version of democracy works. It brings political stability and allows culture and arts to thrive, making Athens the dominant force in the growing Greek Empire. It is an idea so successful that it spreads.
So this move from a system of tyranny to this direct democracy, that's quite a radical political revolution. It's something that will take hold throughout the Greek world later, but Athens is the place where this sort of idea begins.
After Alexander's death, his newly conquered Egyptian lands are claimed by one of his generals, Ptolemy Soter. He becomes the first in a new line of pharaohs who all take his name, the Ptolemies. But how can these Greeks secure their rule in Egypt and ensure the allegiance of its people? They embark on a massive building campaign.
This place was very important to the Ptolemies. By commissioning temples here, you can extend your authority to the southernmost reaches of your kingdom. Philae was par excellence, the temple of Isis. It was her main cult center, the jewel of the Nile, as we Egyptians call it today.
1,000 kilometers south of Alexandria, this temple is a calculated piece of propaganda.
By doing this, you're living up to the expectations of what an ancient Egyptian pharaoh was supposed to do. With all the symbolism, the hieroglyphs, the figures, he was saying, I may be Greek in origin, but I am Pharaoh.
At first, the strategy works, but the Ptolemies are greedy.
They paid little attention to Egypt itself. To them, Egypt was to be exploited. By displaying extravagance and luxury, you're showing the rest of the world how your kingdom is much better than theirs. Yours is the richest.
The Ptolemies live extravagant lives, all funded by ever-increasing taxes paid by the Egyptian people, who are not happy about it. In 206 BCE, it all comes to a head.
Up here, we have 2 decrees from the reign of Ptolemy V that talks about massive revolt across Egypt. How for 20 years, people were very tired of Ptolemaic rule. We hear about farmers completely leaving their tools and leaving their land and going off just to run away from taxes. The exploitation was way too much. And ultimately, a king who does not take care of his people, it's only a matter of time until it goes into decline.
Things are no better for the Ptolemies themselves, who make a habit of incest. This leads to bloody disputes over succession.
The Ptolemaic family already was sort of intermarrying, but it gets more and more complicated with each passing generation, such that you get into terrible situations. Perhaps the most horrible example is Ptolemy VIII. He marries his full sister, and on their wedding day, he actually has her son from Ptolemy VI killed in her arms. That's how bad it gets.
The Ptolemies cling to power for almost 2 more centuries. But weakened by infighting and revolts, they seek out allies across the Mediterranean, in Rome. Here, they get mixed up in bloody civil wars. And in 30 BCE, the most famous Ptolemy of all, Cleopatra, finds herself on the losing side. Facing defeat, she takes her own life. Her death ends a 3,000-year-old line of pharaohs. It is the end for this ancient power.
Rome's empire was built on the back of the soldiers, and most of the time those soldiers were foreigners. These were barbarians that essentially were mercenaries hired by Rome with the promise of a better life. If you think about what the outskirts of the empire was, the promise of being a Roman citizen, of having their own version of Rome, was very appealing.
Franks, Gauls, Goths, and Celts are just some of the tribes drafted into the imperial army.
You could be anything, but you were always at the heart of it, Rome. It's the glue that kept the Roman Empire together.
But this is a risky strategy for the emperors back in the capital.
What happens eventually is that Rome is making its own enemies, because on one side you need these people to help you protect the empire, you need to hire these mercenaries. But on the other side, you're training people who might one day turn against you.
In 260 CE, Frankish and Germanic tribes rebel and spread chaos. A decade later, the Vandals tear through Roman territory, threatening the capital. Now, Rome needs to protect itself.
Rome has not needed walls for almost 700 years. It's been safe. Rome had been protected by her legions. No need for any kind of fortifications. Suddenly, they need walls. And they start throwing them up. And in 5 years, they build a circuit of 19 kilometers.
In their desperate rush, the Romans build these walls with anything that comes to hand.
You can see up here a piece of a decorative architrave of some noble Roman monument that was ripped down and built into the walls because there was no time to waste.
Despite their haphazard construction, these walls are a protective shield. 10 meters high and 4 meters thick, they stave off attacks from rampaging barbarians. But in 408, a once loyal Germanic tribe arrive at the gates. The Visigoths. The city's walls now face their ultimate test.
Visigoth can smell a weakness and smell an opportunity, and the wealth of Rome is obviously one of the most amazing draws. If you can invade Rome and sack Rome, you've done something that no one else has done. It's the greatest prize in the ancient world.
For 2 years, the Visigoths repeatedly lay siege to the city.
For a while, Rome could hold out. But gradually, the pressure rose on the inside. There were famines, there were plagues, there were corpses lying in the streets. It was desperate times.
Finally, on the 24th of August, 410, the barbarians breach the gates. Fires rage, and they loot the city for 3 days. Rome has fallen.
Until 410, Rome, although embattled, was still invincible, was still intact. The walls had protected the city from all invaders. And suddenly the myth of Rome is broken. The inviolable city, the heart of the empire, is taken by a foreign enemy, a barbarian enemy.
Now Rome's enemies know it can be defeated. It signals the end of this ancient power.